Have you ever wondered why some people, even when the world crushes them to dust, can rise and forge the greatest achievements? Not because they're exceptional, not because fortune favored them, but because in the moment when the world turns its back, they don't scream, plead, or blame. They become silent. They sit with their pain, face the hidden shadows within themselves, and begin to forge like a warrior in the night. At a time when Thomas Edison was met with rejection after rejection, no one saw the ember glowing inside him. It was not just the light of an unmade bulb, but the flame of an unquenchable will. People called him mad. They mocked his failures for entertainment, but Edison didn't come to entertain them. He came to test, to err, to fall, and then rise again. Over 1,000 times he repeated this journey like a ritual. No one understood why he never quit, but Edison understood. Each failure was a deeper dive into himself. Every snuffed-out dream taught him about limits, not of matter, but of belief. You see, the world isn't short of smart people. It doesn't lack dreamers. What it lacks is those who dare stay with their failures long enough to be reborn through them. When shunned, most retreat. When forgotten, they search for attention. When hurt, they try to prove they're okay. But Edison was different. He knew a stoic truth. Nothing lies outside your choice. No one can strip away your inner freedom unless you hand it over. A man rejected by the world faces two paths: fade away in darkness, or use that darkness to kindle the first light. In Jung's terms, Edison entered the process of individuation, no longer living to please, but to manifest his true self. He no longer feared the dark because he learned to dialogue with it. And from that darkness emerged a light that had never existed before. In that silence, Edison was never alone. Every man who's lived authentically understands that moment, when the world tells you you're not enough, you're not creative enough, not like them. That's the invitation to look inward, not to hide but to unleash. Each rejection is not a failure, but a portal into deeper truth, where illusions fall away and you meet your real self. And it's at that depth that you begin to see you're not what others call you. You're not your career, your title, or your failed attempts. You are the flame, unseen, unrecognized, but unstoppable. You don't need permission to burn. You only need the courage to stay silent long enough. Because when you're silent, not surrendering, but preparing, the universe begins to whisper what you've never heard. And in that quiet, Edison didn't just build light. He became light. He had once been mocked, not by one person, but by hundreds. Each time he rose, the world said again and again, "No thanks." But what they didn't see, and what you may not see, is that those rejections were at the end. They were doorways. The man turned away 1,009 times when he knocked on each restaurant door, offering his perfected fried chicken recipe. He wasn't just an old cook. He was a living embodiment of an ancient truth. When you walk silently through the world's noise, without begging or reacting, you become invincible. There's a power that doesn't come from words, but from silence. Silence forged in suffering, in persistence, in unseen long nights. It's not the silence of defeat, it's the silence of preparation for the brilliance that emerges from the darkest storm. Edison didn't create light through consensus. He didn't need others to believe first. In each failure, over 1,000 failures, he didn't see mistakes. He saw possibilities not yet ripe. Do you see? The world can't define such a man, because he isn't living to be accepted. He's living to become. And this is the most painful process. The process of individuation, as Jung described. You're no longer the social mask. You're not the likable one, or the one who should do the right thing. You become yourself. Raw, flawed, yet profoundly real. The silence of a man rejected by the world is not surrender. It's a quiet refusal to crave external approval. Inside that silence, a primal force is stirring. A slender yet unextinguishable beam of light. A silent but fierce awakening dot. Imagine a man unemployed. Family doesn't believe. Friends withdraw. He sits alone in a cold room, no calls, no visitors. Yet instead of despair, he starts writing, learning, training his body. Invisible progress, but each day, he reconstructs himself from ashes. In that dark, when all melts away, is when the man stops forcing himself to be good enough. He starts digging into his subconscious, old wounds, the shadow he once fled. He realizes that seeking approval was just a cloak for fear of abandonment. But darkness isn't the enemy. It is the guide. When a man dares to face his deepest darkness, anger, shame, hurt, envy, without judgment, he steps into the fiercest freedom. Freedom from needing to be seen. Because when you truly see yourself, when you're calm enough to touch your true essence, you no longer crave applause. And ironically, that's when the world begins to turn and look. They no longer hear your words, they feel your energy. And that energy can't be faked. It comes from the long nights you survived. That is when you become light. Not because you want to be seen, but because you can't help but shine. He no longer demands the world's forgiveness. Nor does he need a stage to prove he deserves love. Because the most precious thing has already happened. He has forgiven himself. This is the final threshold many never cross. They think they must pay, redeem, or improve to earn love. But the truth is, no one is either worthy or unworthy. Love begins when you stop judging yourself. Thomas Edison failed over 1,000 times before creating the light bulb. But he never called those failures mistakes. He called them necessary steps. Because light cannot be created if you fear the dark. And this is the final lesson. When you are rejected, abandoned, forgotten, don't run seeking a new world to win love. Turn inward. Listen to the silence. Sit with the pain. Observe your darkness, not to fight it, but to understand it. That is Jung's process of individuation, where you stop living in others' shadows and begin to walk on your own feet. You no longer chase borrowed dreams. Instead, you delicately touch your own truth. You will lose many things, but then you'll realize nothing was ever lost. You are simply shedding layers of illusion. You are leaving a world that never belonged to you, and stepping into one where you no longer must strive to fit. A world where you are silent and yet shine brilliantly. No need to fight for recognition. No need to shout to be heard. Because when you truly are yourself, your presence becomes the answer. The woman who understands her worth doesn't chase, she chooses. The man who knows his value doesn't beg, he simply is. And that presence, that is the light Edison carried when he first lit the world. In darkness,